Have you ever caught him looking at you, then looking away like nothing happened? Or noticed he remembers tiny details about you, things you don't even remember saying? Here's the scary part. Most people miss the clearest signs someone likes them, not because they're invisible, but because they don't look like flirting at all. And that's exactly why so many connections never turn into anything, not because the interest isn't there, but because the signals are misunderstood. In this video, we're breaking down the subtle behaviors, quiet habits, and psychological clues that reveal when he likes you, even when he never says it out loud. By the end, you'll know exactly what to look for, and more importantly, what it actually means. Let's start with the first sign almost everyone ignores. Most people think that if someone likes you, you'll know it immediately. They imagine confidence, clear flirting, obvious compliments, but real attraction rarely shows up that way. In fact, the biggest sign he likes you is usually the one that feels the least romantic. It's inconsistency, but not the careless kind. When someone genuinely likes you, especially if they're unsure how you feel or afraid of rejection, their behavior often shifts. One moment they're open, talkative, fully engaged, and the next, they pull back. They joke less, they act neutral, almost distant. And this is where most people get it wrong. They assume he's losing interest. They think, if he liked me, he wouldn't act like this. So they emotionally step back, right when the interest was actually strongest. Here's what's really happening. When he's around you, he becomes more aware of himself. He starts overthinking his words, his reactions, even his body language. Suddenly, something that once felt natural feels risky, because now your opinion matters. That internal pressure creates hesitation. So instead of leaning in consistently, he oscillates, warm when he feels confident, distant when doubt creeps in, not because the feelings disappeared, but because they intensified. You might notice he's more attentive in private conversations, but quieter in group settings. Or he checks in on you randomly, then goes silent for a bit. Or he treats you casually, yet somehow remembers details no one else does. These contradictions confuse people. But they're not random. They're signs of emotional self-control, someone trying not to reveal too much too fast. And here's the part almost everyone overlooks. If he didn't care, his behavior would be stable, predictable, flat. There would be no tension, no shifts, no emotional friction. Inconsistency driven by confusion is very different from inconsistency driven by disinterest. One comes from not caring at all. The other comes from caring too much. That's why this sign is so often missed, because it doesn't feel reassuring. It feels uncertain, and humans naturally interpret uncertainty as rejection. But attraction doesn't always create boldness. Sometimes it creates caution. And once you understand that difference, you stop misreading moments that were never meant to push you away, only moments where someone was trying to protect themselves. Now that you know this, the next sign becomes much clearer, because it shows up not in what he says, but in how he reacts when you're not paying attention. Texting is where attraction becomes the hardest to read, because words are short, tone is missing, and everything can be misunderstood. But when he likes you, his texts usually reveal patterns he doesn't even realize he's creating. It's not about how fast he replies. That's the first mistake people make. Someone can take hours to respond and still be deeply interested. What matters isn't speed, it's effort. When he likes you, his messages don't try to end the conversation quickly. Even when he's busy, he leaves openings, a question, a reaction, something that keeps the connection alive, because subconsciously, he doesn't want the interaction to stop. You might notice he responds with more than necessary. You send one line, he sends 3. You make a simple comment, he adds context, humor, or a story. Not to impress you intentionally, but because he's emotionally invested in how the conversation feels. Another subtle sign shows up in timing. When he likes you, his replies often come at forward moments. Late at night, early in the morning, during breaks you didn't know he had. Those aren't random. Those are the moments when his guard is down, when he's thinking about you without distractions. And then there's the shift in tone. At first, the messages feel light, casual, safe, but over time, they slowly become more personal. He shares opinions, mentions his day, brings up things that have nothing to do with logistics, because texting stops being about communication and starts becoming about connection. You'll also notice he mirrors you. If you use emojis, he slowly starts using them too. If your messages get warmer, his follow the same rhythm. Mirroring is one of the strongest subconscious signs of attraction, and almost impossible to fake consistently. But here's the part most people misunderstand. When he likes you, he may suddenly pull back in texting, shorter replies, slower pacing, less initiation. And again, people assume disinterest, but often, it's hesitation. He starts wondering if he's texting too much, if he's coming across as needy, if you feel the same way. So he tests distance, not to disconnect, but to see if you'll meet him halfway. Because when someone likes you, texting becomes emotional territory. Every message feels like a signal. Every silence feels louder. And once you know what to look for, you stop focusing on reply time and start recognizing emotional intention. Because the clearest sign isn't how often he texts. It's how much of himself shows up in the messages. And the next sign makes this even more obvious, because it happens without words at all. What makes body language so powerful is that it happens before someone has time to think. Words can be chosen. Text can be edited, but body language reacts instantly, and that's why it often reveals the truth. When he likes you, his body responds to your presence before he's even aware of it. You might notice that when you walk into a room, his posture changes. He sits up slightly, adjusts his shoulders, shifts his position so he's facing you, even if the conversation isn't with you yet. These are automatic reactions. The body prepares itself when someone important enters its space. Another subtle sign appears in proximity. He finds reasons to be closer without making it obvious, standing near you instead of across the room, choosing the seat beside you instead of an empty one somewhere else, not invading your space, just gently reducing the distance, because attraction pulls people inward. And when he does speak to you, pay attention to his feet. It sounds strange, but feet rarely lie. If his feet point toward you, even while his body is turned elsewhere, it means his attention is anchored on you. It's one of the most instinctive indicators of interest. Then there's eye contact. When he likes you, it often comes in short bursts. He looks at you, then looks away, then looks again, not because he's uninterested, but because holding eye contact suddenly feels intense. You may even catch him looking when he thinks you're not watching. And when your eyes meet, he quickly looks away or smiles without realizing it. That reaction isn't rehearsed. It's emotional leakage. You'll also notice mirroring in physical movement. If you cross your arms, he does shortly after. If you lean in, he follows. If you laugh and tilt your head, he mirrors the gesture. Mirroring is the body's way of saying, I feel connected to you. And it happens almost entirely subconsciously. But here's the sign almost no one pays attention to. When he likes you, he becomes slightly more self-aware around you. He fixes his hair, straightens his clothes, touches his face or neck briefly. These aren't vanity habits, they're nervous responses. Attraction activates vulnerability. Your presence makes him want to present himself well, even if he doesn't know why. And the reason these signs are missed is because they're quiet. They don't demand attention. They don't announce themselves. But once you notice them, they become impossible to unsee. And the next sign takes this even further, because it shows up not in what he does around you, but in how he reacts when other people are involved. One of the most confusing things you'll notice is that he doesn't act the same around you when other people are present. When you're alone, he's warmer, more open, more natural, but in group settings, something shifts. He becomes quieter, more reserved, or sometimes oddly distant. And this is where doubt usually starts. You think, if he really liked me, wouldn't he act the same everywhere? But attraction doesn't always create confidence, especially when other people are watching. When he likes you, your presence suddenly raises the stakes. Around others, he becomes more aware of how he's being perceived. He doesn't just think about you anymore. He thinks about what his behavior might look like to everyone else. So he pulls back. Not because his feelings changed, but because exposure feels risky. In private, there's safety. In public, there's vulnerability. He may worry about teasing from friends, about revealing too much, about making things obvious before he knows how you feel. So instead of leaning in, he masks it. Sometimes that mask looks like indifference. Sometimes it looks like joking too much. Sometimes it looks like treating you almost normally, but not quite. You might even notice him talking more to others while barely engaging with you. And that hurts until you understand what's happening underneath. Avoidance isn't always rejection. Often, it's restraint. He's trying to manage emotions he hasn't fully sorted out yet. But there's a tell. Even when he's acting distant, his attention still finds you. He checks your reactions, watches when you laugh, notices when you speak. Even when he's not directly interacting, his awareness stays connected. It's subtle, but consistent. And here's the part most people don't realize. If he truly didn't care, he wouldn't monitor you at all. Your presence wouldn't change his behavior. The shift itself is the signal. Because emotional investment alters behavior, even when someone is trying to hide it. That's why this sign is so confusing. It doesn't feel warm. It doesn't feel reassuring. But it is meaningful. And once you recognize it, you stop internalizing his distance and start seeing the hesitation behind it. Because the next sign explains exactly why that hesitation exists and why attraction sometimes makes people act hot and cold. Few things are more confusing than this. One day he's attentive, warm, clearly interested. The next, he feels distant, short, almost disconnected. And the emotional whiplash makes you question everything. You wonder if you imagined the connection, if you said something wrong, if he suddenly lost interest. But hot and cold behavior rarely comes from a lack of feelings. More often, it comes from too many. When he likes you, two opposing forces start pulling at him at the same time. One side wants closeness, the other wants control. Attraction creates desire, but it also creates fear. Fear of rejection, fear of embarrassment, fear of caring more than the other person. So when he feels emotionally confident, he moves closer. He engages more. He opens up. That's the hot. But the moment doubt creeps in, a delayed reply, an unread message, an unclear reaction, his mind fills in the blanks. And instead of risking vulnerability, he pulls away. That's the cold. Not because he stopped caring, but because he's trying to protect himself from feeling exposed. This push and pull can happen internally in minutes. You never see the battle, only the outcome. And the mistake most people make is reacting emotionally to the cold phase. They withdraw completely. They become distant in return. They assume rejection, which unintentionally confirms his fear that the interest wasn't mutual. Hot and cold behavior isn't manipulation when it's unconscious. It's uncertainty searching for safety. And here's the important distinction. If someone is playing games, the pattern feels calculated, strategic, repetitive. But when someone is conflicted, the pattern feels messy, emotional, inconsistent. You'll notice warmth mixed with guilt, interest mixed with hesitation. That confusion is the signal, because disinterest is simple. It doesn't fluctuate. It doesn't create emotional waves. It doesn't leave you feeling like something almost happened. Hot and cold behavior does, because something is happening, just not fully expressed yet. And once you understand this, you stop chasing clarity through reaction and start recognizing what his behavior is really responding to. Because the next piece explains what's actually happening inside his mind, the psychology that drives all of this beneath the surface. Attraction doesn't begin with confidence. It begins with awareness. When a man starts to like someone, his brain doesn't immediately move toward action. It moves toward evaluation. He begins observing, not just how you look, but how he feels around you, whether conversations flow, whether he feels understood, whether being near you gives him a sense of calm or intensity. That emotional shift is important because male attraction is strongly tied to internal state. If he feels relaxed around you, attraction grows steadily. If he feels emotionally exposed, attraction becomes conflicted. This is where hesitation appears. His mind starts running ahead of the moment, imagining outcomes that haven't happened yet. Rejection, awkwardness, change in the dynamic. So instead of moving forward naturally, he slows himself down, not because desire disappears, but because emotional attachment increases perceived risk. This is why attraction can make someone quieter instead of bolder. The stronger the feeling, the more carefully he manages it. Another key part of male psychology is autonomy. When attraction feels like it might cost independence or emotional control, the brain resists, even if the heart leans in. That resistance doesn't cancel attraction, it delays expression. You'll notice this in small ways: thinking before speaking, pausing before responding, holding back emotions that clearly want to surface. And here's what most people misunderstand. Men don't fall through constant emotion, they fall through moments of meaning. Shared laughter, feeling respected, feeling seen without pressure. That's when attraction deepens quietly, internally, long before it's verbalized. Which is why many connections feel like they're hovering in between something. Not because nothing is happening, but because everything is happening internally first. And the next sign reveals what occurs when attraction meets fear, when feelings are present, but confidence hasn't caught up yet. When someone likes you but feels afraid to act on it, their behavior becomes cautious, almost guarded. You'll notice that he wants closeness, but only in controlled moments. He opens up a little, then quickly pulls back, shares something personal, then changes the subject, shows warmth, then acts like it didn't happen. That back and forth isn't accidental. It's fear trying to coexist with attraction. He may avoid direct conversations about feelings, not because he doesn't have them, but because saying them out loud would make them real. And real feelings feel irreversible. So instead, he communicates indirectly, through checking in on you, through small acts of support, through being present when it matters. Even if he disappears afterward, you might also notice hesitation in decision-making. He suggests plans, then delays them, talks about doing things together, sometime, keeps things open-ended. That vagueness isn't lack of interest. It's fear of crossing a line he's not emotionally ready to face. Another strong sign appears in moments of emotional closeness, when conversations get deep, when there's laughter, vulnerability, or a sense of connection. He may suddenly go quiet afterward, not because it didn't matter, but because it mattered too much. Emotional intimacy activates attachment, and attachment activates fear of loss. So he distances himself briefly to regain emotional balance. And here's the detail most people overlook. When he's scared but interested, he rarely fully lets go. Even during distance, he checks your reactions, notices changes, responds if you reach out. Because fear doesn't erase desire, it just slows it down. Disinterest cuts cleanly. Fear lingers, it stays connected from a distance. That's the difference. And once you understand this, you stop interpreting his hesitation as rejection and start seeing it as someone standing at the edge of vulnerability. Because the next sign reveals the moment when attraction finally crosses from uncertainty into something more than friendship. Noticing the signs is only half the moment. What truly matters is what you do next. Because attraction doesn't grow through pressure, it grows through safety. When you sense that he likes you, the instinct is often to seek clarity immediately, to ask questions, to push for definition. But subtle attraction responds better to space than force. The first thing to do is stay grounded. Don't change how you act. Don't overperform. Don't pull away out of fear. Consistency creates emotional safety, and safety is what allows hesitation to dissolve. Instead of trying to confirm his feelings, focus on how the interaction feels when